You are welcome to yet another episode of HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show, where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. The U.S. Constitution explicitly prohibits retroactive punishment through the ex post facto clause. Found in Article I, Section 9, this clause ensures that individuals cannot be punished for actions that were not crimes at the time they were committed. This principle is a safeguard against government overreach, protecting citizens from arbitrary and retroactive laws or enactments. R. Kelly's convictions have reignited debates about how this clause is applied in modern criminal cases. Some of the charges brought against him relied on statutes or interpretations of law that were either not in effect or differently understood at the time of the alleged offenses. This means his conviction conflicts with constitutional protections. To explain this better, according to the Chicago trial transcript, R. Kelly is alleged to have groomed and abused 3 girls, one called Jane, the other Pauline and the third by the name Nia in the early 90s, all friends from back then. During that time of alleged offense, there was indeed an existing statute of limitations that suggested that alleged victims of underage abuse cannot litigate once they have clocked the ages of 25 years, and this was to prevent women from taking advantage of the law to punish and extort men claiming abuse from childhood times, for it was believed that by the age of 25, they should have been adults long enough to understand whether they were abused or not. And of course, this was also a safeguard to prevent late litigations at a time when much of the evidence in relation to the case for either its prosecution or its defense has been lost. And this made perfect sense because evidence indeed does get lost and spoilt over time. And this could make it very difficult for a defendant accused of such crimes to properly refute the claims against them. Let's take an example of a man accused of a criminal offense such as robbing a bank. If such a matter is litigated in time, one may have an alibi that suggests during the time the robbery took place, they were at the mall shopping, and they may be able to produce the receipts to confirm this. However, decades later, the receipts may have been lost, and completely unavailable from the shopping store system. This would make it more difficult for such a defendant to prove his location during the time of crime and therefore their innocence. Resultantly, this may end in a wrongful conviction. A lot can happen to weaken a case over time. Witnesses may die and plenty evidence can go missing. This is why such statutes of limitations were introduced in criminal cases where a lot is at stake if a defendant is found guilty. The prosecution's argument, however, is that this statute of limitations that would otherwise safeguard R. Kelly from litigation as all the 3 women had passed the ages of 25 was eventually changed in 2003 to the new version with the PROTECT Act by Congress stating as follows. No statute of limitations that would otherwise preclude prosecution for an offense involving the sexual or physical abuse, or kidnapping of a child under the age of 18 years shall preclude such prosecution during the life of the child, or for 10 years after the offense, whichever is longer. And because of this, they feel they had the right to ignore the previous statutes of limitations and litigate against Mr. Kelly. This is, however, so wrong. Our wonderful Constitution simply does not allow Congress to make laws or amendments laws that act retroactively, resultantly denying any defendant rights they may have previously possessed during the period in which they are alleged to have acted. And this is clearly reflected in the United States Constitution Article 1 and Section 9, which states that, no bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed by Congress. And having read this part of the supreme law of this land, the appeal court judges were obligated to stop the litigation process and immediately drop the Chicago charges, which they didn't do. The appeal judges claim that the way the amendment was written by Congress allows for its retroactive application, but this is such a lame excuse for them to allow this insane interpretation of the law. And by doing this, the appeal court together with their trial court counterparts are putting Congress on the spot for a possible violation of their mandate that prohibits such retroactive enactments. Meaning either the judges are wrong or Congress was the one at fault. One of the two broke the law somewhere, and not R. Kelly, who is simply arguing synonymously with the non-retroactivity clause in Article 1, Section 9 of the U.S. Constitution. Here is why retroactive laws are just not something our country or any other legal system will ever condone. These are laws that retroactively make what was previously an innocent act criminal after it has already happened, increase the punishment for a crime after it has already been committed, or change the rules of evidence to make conviction easier. We all contend that applying laws to certain behaviors decades after they occurred and therefore past the expired statutes of limitations stretches their original intent and violates the ex post facto clause. Additionally, changes in societal norms and legal interpretations complicate matters. For instance, behaviors that might have been culturally overlooked or legally ambiguous in the past are now rightfully condemned. While it could have been illegal for women to wear trousers like men in some states from the past years, it wouldn't make sense to compensate those that were convicted back then only because it's not acceptable by law. This shift does not justify retroactively prosecuting the government under the new modern standards for wrongful punishment where such behavior is now acceptable. The Constitution simply says no to retroactive laws, and this clause was violated by the government, the trial court Judge Harry Leinenweber, and later on by the Chicago Court of Appeals. R. Kelly's defense team has also raised concerns about due process. They argue that some evidence presented during his trial involved conduct that was not clearly illegal at the time. If the legal definitions of his actions have evolved over time, then prosecuting him under today's standards undermines the constitutional guarantee of fair notice. While appeal judges assert that the charges against R. Kelly are valid because they involve ongoing patterns of behavior that extended into periods when laws were more clearly defined, this in a way is conceding that in fact the laws were saying something different in the past and this should have been respected. Everyone who is educated, especially in law, should know applying modern interpretations of older statutes effectively criminalizes past behavior retroactively, resultantly violating the clearly outlined ex post facto clause. It's crucial to remember that the Constitution is not about defending individuals but instead about defending principles. The prohibition on retroactive punishment isn't about excusing wrongdoing. It's about ensuring that justice is applied fairly and consistently. If this principle is eroded, therefore, it could set a dangerous precedent for future cases. In fact, the debate over R. Kelly's conviction is far from over. Further Supreme Court appeals may focus on whether the charges violated constitutional protections. Regardless of the outcome, this case serves as a stark reminder of why the ex post facto clause exists and why its enforcement matters to all of us. We want to hear from you. Do you believe R. Kelly's conviction aligns with the Constitution, or does it violate the prohibition on retroactive punishment? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. If you wish to take part in a live interview on this channel discussing any of these topics, let us know by emailing us on sashahnnewsroom@gmail.com for scheduling. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say? To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.